All right, today we're going to talk a little bit about minimum wage. A couple of days ago, a friend of mine posted reposted a thing on Facebook about minimum wage. I know since the presidential election, a little over a year ago, there has not been a whole lot of stuff in the media about the minimum wage. But his post was about how you're supposed not you can't live on minimum wage. So what I want to do is I want everybody to understand my position on minimum wage. During 16, during the presidential campaign, we saw a lot of people talking about raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. It seems I don't know where they come up with $15 an hour at, but that become the standard. And Washington State, Seattle specifically, has raised theirs. San Francisco, as a matter of fact, the state of California has raised their minimum wage to $15 an hour. It's being graduated in over the next, I think, 2, 3, 4 years. I'm going to say this. Does the minimum wage need to be raised? Yes, I will agree that it does. My minimum wage would be $9 an hour. It's currently $7.25. Most states, I believe, are actually over that now. The states themselves have raised their minimum wage above $7.25. So I think we need to take the federal. And the reason why I say 9 is a couple years ago when it first started with the $15 thing. I sit down when I was in high school, 1978. I worked at the grocery store bagging groceries, and I made minimum wage. At that time, minimum wage was $2.35 an hour. So what I did was a little while back. I googled on the internet what is in today's dollars the equivalent of $2.35 in 1978, and it comes up to like $8.80 some cents. So to put the minimum wage equal through inflation, cost of living, all this other stuff, as to what it was back when I worked in the high school in the grocery stores. $9 would be fine. Okay. The owner of my company, we raised our starting wage to $9 an hour a couple years ago. The owner put out a message that nobody would be allowed to be hired at less than $9. I think part of that was he was anticipating Obama, because Obama at the time was raising, he just signed an executive order to pay overtime for salaried employees at the government that work for the government. And Obama was doing several things to raise wages. And I think part of what he did was anticipation of it becoming a federal law, so we were already ahead of the game and didn't have to make a big drastic change. Several of the states have raised their wages and stuff like that. A couple of companies did. Walmart has raised their starting salary. Some of the McDonald's franchises have done the same thing. And but the whole point of all this is a $15 an hour minimum wage is ridiculous. Okay, I agree with raising it to $9 an hour, which is a few cents over what I found. Like I said, what was $2.35 in 1978? What's it equal to today? And that's $8.80. I think it was like $8.86, if I'm not mistaken, right around there. So just going with the $9 would be fine. But what I disagree with all this other stuff, the biggest argument on raising minimum wage is what I disagree with, and that is that minimum wage is not a livable wage. Well, duh. It was never meant to be a livable wage. When minimum wage was first implemented in this country, it was implemented as simply it was to kind of be a little more fair to workers. There were people working for such petty amounts of money that, I mean, it was ridiculous. And so the government come down and said, well, we're going to set a minimum wage. And the minimum wage was designed to be the minimum amount of money that employers can pay their employees. It was never intended to be a livable wage. It is the wage that you will work when you first start off in the workforce. My personal opinion on this is if you're in your 30s and you're still working a minimum wage job, you need to reevaluate your work history. Minimum wage jobs are jobs that are held by people in high school, in college, when you first leave high school and get in the job force. You know, it's the bottom of the rung job, period. If you want $15 an hour, then what you should be doing is learning how to do that job. You see, the jobs that we had in our company, I'll explain. We're a paint body shop company, okay? So the positions we had was a detailer. That's the guy who unwraps the cars when they come out of the paint booth. You pull the tape and paper off, you wipe down the windows, clean any overspray, glue the emblems on, and that's basically it. Then you had your sanders. They were the guys that prepped the car. They did the extra sanding to remove peeling clear, crack peeling paint, items like that. You had your taper. He was the person who wrapped the car up before it went in the booth. Then you had your two most skilled employees, which is your painter and your body man. Okay, the body man did all the dents, dings, rust repair, part replacement, and your painter put the paint on the cars. Being a production paint shop, the painter was required to paint 8 to 10 cars a day. You know, when he finished one car, you pull it out and pull the next one in. He sprays it and keeps going. There's a skill level to being able to paint cars with single stage enamel, make them come out of the booth looking like they're supposed to, and be able to do 8 to 10 cars a day that way. All right? So those guys make a lot more money than minimum wage. And this is the problem with raising the minimum wage. My detailer was the low man on the totem pole. He was the minimum wage guy. He was the least skilled employee. And that's the whole point. Minimum wage is the least skilled person. If you wanted to become a sander and you learned how to sand cars, then when that position come up and you got moved in that position, you got a pay raise to go along. The sanders made more money than the detailer. The tapers, who was a more skilled job, made more money than the sanders. And the painter and the body man, they are the most skilled. They make more than the other employees. One of the things in my thought process on this is that I saw a sign on it. This lady was holding up at some minimum wage rally that said, "I deserve $15 an hour." And that's where a lot of this issue comes from. People say, well, I deserve $15 an hour. But you're working a minimum wage job. If you deserved $15 an hour, then you would be working a $15 an hour job. You don't get $15 an hour because you don't have the ability to do the job that pays it. That's where we need to reevaluate how we do things. If, you know, it's like in our shop. That would be like saying a detailer coming out and saying, "Hey, I deserve $15 an hour." Can you paint a car? Can you paint 8 cars a day? No. Then you don't deserve the money that the painter gets. Just because you think you deserve it doesn't mean you do. And that's where we got to get people to understand in this country. You don't just go out there and protest and say, well, I want more money, so I'm going to make the government tell my boss that he has to pay me more money because I want it. If you want the money, you got to do the job. That lady that held that sign up said, I deserve $15 an hour. Well, if you think you deserve it, then go find out what that $15 an hour job requires, learn to do it, get the experience, and guess what? You're going to make 15 bucks an hour. I remember this. This goes all the way back to the 2008 presidential campaign. Because I was reading in the Macon newspaper one day, they had the different candidates listed during the primaries and what their position was on different things. And that's exactly what I saw. One of the presidential candidates had made the comment that minimum wage was not enough money for a person to raise a family of 4 on. And so, so this debate's been going on for many, many years. And like I said, that's the whole point. And now this is what, and I want you to understand something here. With minimum wage, when you raise minimum wage, and this is why it hurts the job market. They don't understand this, all right? In the 16 campaign, in 2016, when all this stuff people were talking about raising minimum wage, you've already seen some of the fast food companies doing it. McDonald's has got it in a lot of their places. But they started putting in computer screen kiosks to where you go in and you punch in there on your own order, you swipe your debit card, and you pay for your order. And then you stand there and wait for a person to make it and bring it out to you. That's how companies are going to get over on having to raise prices. Because when you raise the minimum wage, you're not just increasing the wage of the lowest man on the totem pole. You have to increase the entire pay scale. Okay? Minimum wage is the bottom of the pay scale. And this is what y'all folks don't understand. Is that when you raise that bottom rung of the scale, then the entire scale has to go up. If my detailer, if the government raised minimum wage to $15 an hour, my detailer now has to make $15 an hour. Do you think my painter is still going to paint cars for 15 bucks an hour? Seriously? No. He's more skilled than that detailer is. He has a skilled job. Therefore, he's going to want more money. The sanders are more skilled than the detailer. The taper is more skilled than the sanders. So everybody is going to have to go up. So if we raise minimum wage to 15, then my detailer is going to make $15 an hour. My sanders are going to have to go up to like $16 or $17 an hour. My taper is going to be like $18, $19. And my painter is going to be like $20, $21, $22 an hour. So how do we do this? It's not like my company has a tree out back that we have money growing on and that we just take money off that tree, because we have now increased cost of operations. Not only that, but my manager's pay has to go up. Right now, if we raise minimum wage to $15 an hour, my detailer, if he works a 40-hour week, is going to get $600 a week. Do you think a manager that works 55 hours a week, do you think they're going to work for 15 bucks an hour? If you take 55-hour work week, 15 hours of overtime, on minimum wage at $15 an hour, that's $950 a week. I'm going to have to raise the assistant manager's paycheck to at least $1,000, $1,100 a week. Managers are going to have to go to 12 to 13. And the area supervisors are going to have to go to 15. So let's just do this. Let's just take the store. My current average payroll is about $3,500 a week. Got 40 hours per everybody. If we raise minimum wage to 15, and then you adjust everybody else's pay scale, including the managers, my pay scale, my payroll now goes to $6,000 a week. Now, in order for a store to be profitable, we have to maintain a 30% payroll. 30% of our net So that means right now at $3,500 a week, 30%, I have to turn a $14,000 gross week, or about $14,000 gross week, when you subtract parts, tax, environmental charge to make the net. I have to run about a $14,000 gross week in order to be a profitable store. If you raise payroll to $6,000 a week, that means my net pay has to be a minimum of $18,000. When you add in parts, tax, environmental charge, you're now saying that I have to gross $20,000 to $22,000 a week just to make payroll. Now, since we paint 40 cars a week, how do you go from a $14,000 a week to add $6,000 a week to your sales in order to cover your payroll? Well, you could paint more cars. You'd have to paint about 55, 60 cars a week in order to do that. You know, with the same people, that's impossible. If you add more people, you increase the amount of payroll. But 60 cars a week on an 8-hour day, that's practically impossible. So how do you do it? Well, it's pretty simple, folks. Things that y'all liberals don't understand. You got to raise prices. You see, raising minimum wage creates an increase in cost of operations. Increasing cost of operations creates an increase in cost of services, which means the customer pays more money. And what happens across the board in the entire United States is cost of living goes up. And guess what? $15 an hour minimum wage will still no longer be a wage that you can live on and raise a family of 4. Because after everything has finally went through the adjustment, it takes a few years. Then your cost of living is going to be too high at $15 an hour. Still ain't going to make it. So there's a simple solution. Quit working a minimum wage job. Take that job as your beginning, as it's meant to be. Start learning other skills. Gain experience. Move up the pay scale. That's how you become, you get a livable wage job. You don't do it by going out and protesting because you have no skills and say, hey, government, tell my employer I want more money because I don't have any skills that rates more money, but I think I deserve it. You don't deserve it if you don't earn it. I'll give you this quick little scenario, and then I'll let you go on this. I had a manager in Nashville, Tennessee a few years ago who wanted to give 2 of his employees a pay raise. One was a sander and the other was the painter. And I told him like this. I says, my managers didn't have to ask me to give pay raises to their employees. They're the store manager. They can give pay raises as much as they want to anybody they want. But this is what they had to take in consideration. Their job was to maintain a 30% payroll. So if they gave pay raises to people and blew payroll, their job was in jeopardy. Because when you start blowing payroll, I start losing money. And I can't keep the store open if it's not paying the bills. And that's the other thing people who aren't in certain levels of business don't understand. The business has to turn a profit. Okay? If it doesn't turn a profit, it's not going to stay in business. If the income of the services or goods sold are not covering at least the cost of operations, then the business will not stay in business and it'll go bankrupt and go out of business. So I told the manager, raise the prices. You can pay, but I want to warn you. If you blow payroll, your job's in jeopardy. Well, he went over my head and went to my boss and asked my boss. And the boss was like, yeah, sure, give him a pay raise. Okay, which he did. Now, in the conversation he and I had about giving pay raises, I says, before you give pay raises, consider this. is that person a $10? The sander was making $8 an hour. The painter was making 10. Okay. I says, is that sander going to do a better job and produce more at $10 an hour? Or is he going to keep doing the same job he's doing right now and the same quality? You're just going to pay him $2 an hour more to do the same thing he's doing. That's the same thing for the painter. The painter's paint jobs were borderline. They were acceptable. But he wasn't painting the number of cars we needed today. I says, if you give him $12 an hour, is the quality of his work going to go up? And is he going to paint more cars for you? You see, if you hire somebody that has no experience, and I hire him in as a sander, and I start him off at $8 an hour. This was before the owner bumped the brake. Okay, if you're an $8 an hour sander, then you're going to learn the job and you're going to grow and you're going to do the quality of work of an $8 an hour employee. If you're a $10 an hour employee, you're going to work at the level of a $10 an hour employee, and therefore I'm going to want to give you the pay raise to $10 an hour because that's what you work. That's what you're worth. So he gave him, like I said, he went over my head to my boss, and the district manager's like, yeah, go give him a pay raise. So he gave him a pay raise. A few weeks later, I was in the store one day, and he looked at me and he says, Tim, I understand what you mean. Yeah, he gave that sander a pay raise from $8 an hour to $10. During the time period from when he gave him the pay raise till he mentioned that to me, the sander did no more work. He worked at the exact same pace he had done before, and his quality was still borderline. As a matter of fact, personally, the sander needed to be replaced because he was not being productive in the store. Same thing with the painter. He gave the painter $12 an hour. That painter did the exact same number of cars as he did before, and his paint quality was the exact same as it was before. See, the problem is when I give you $10 an hour, or 12 or 15 as a painter, I need you to put enough cars through the paint booth that I can have enough income coming in from the customers to cover the extra cost of my expense of paying you more money. If you're not doing that, I'm going to lose money. And that's exactly what happened. He spent more money on those two employees and got the exact same quality and amount of work out of them as he did for less money. And he started blowing payroll. That's the whole biggest point right there. If you want $15 an hour or $20 an hour, find out the job that pays that. Learn the information you need to do the job and go gain the experience so you can be hired in or promoted to that position. Minimum wage is not a livable wage. It never has been. It's not supposed to be. It is a starting wage when you first enter the workforce and you have no skills and have no knowledge of how to do things. It is your responsibility to learn and educate and gain experience to move up through the ranks. If you're unable or unwilling to do so, then you're going to work minimum wage jobs your whole life and quit whining and crying about it. It's all in your hands. Unfortunately, the liberals don't understand that. They think it's the government's responsibility to pay you more money. But then again, none of them have ever had to balance a payroll None of them has ever worked a position or a job where they've had to be the manager or something and they had to turn a profit in order to stay in business. So now you understand. Minimum wage does not mean a livable wage. Never has been. Never will be. On top of that, if you want more money, it's in your hands, not the government's.